Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Anime Watch Club, a bi-weekly group discussion and review where the hosts of the WDYSA Anime Podcast nominate and vote on shows either we haven't seen or shows that hopefully lead to a great conversation. On today's episode, the Tromboners of the WDYSA Anime Podcast will be reviewing the 2018 anime film Liz and the Bluebird. Let's meet today's lore legends. First up is said Kyo Annie's models their eyes off of him, but not the Clannad eyes, more like sound euphonium. We got Jay. Jay, how's it going?
Oh, going pretty well. I've never seen sound euphonium, so I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm here for it.
It's a compliment. You have beautiful eyes.
Oh, thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. Pulling a 92-93 Toronto Blue Jays going in back-to-back episodes, we got Haz. Haz, how's it going?
You know me, I stay balling out here, baby, and I can't wait to talk about Liz and the Bluebirds.
Glad to have you. If he's a bird, then I'm a bird. Or in this case, a cat. We got Cat. Cat, how's it going?
I'm doing great, man. I'm ready to talk about some Liz and the Bluebird. It is an interesting show.
I would agree. Next up, he got kicked out of concert band for solo playing his flute too much. We got Johnny. Johnny, how's it going?
I literally have no idea how to play a flute. I just blow stuff and apparently stuff comes out.
Yes.
Kind of like my sex life. I'm kidding. I don't have one. Let's move on.
All right, our first spotter, the conductor of the group to keep us all in line. We have Miles. Miles, how's it going?
I'm trying to figure, at first I thought Johnny didn't get the joke, and then he got the joke, and then he made the same joke twice, and then it was just, I don't know. I clearly shouldn't be the conductor because I'm surprised by how my band members play their instruments still.
Sorry to put you on that spot, man. And we got Pat.
Yeah, I also was going to be like, oh, so Johnny missed the wind flute joke, but then apparently he got it. So yeah, here we are.
Wind flute. It's actually a skin flute. Easy mistake to make. My fault.
I have a skin flute.
I know. That was the joke.
Okay, as the conductor, we are talking about what are we talking about, Pat?
Yeah, what are we good? Are we all set, ready to go? I don't know. I keep getting distracted by this dancing cat on my screen too. I kind of just want to join it, you know?
Yeah.
God help us all.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to see me dancing. So yeah, let's get started. Listen to Bluebird. It's a movie that takes place in the sound euphonium verse. Get that, the verse too, because music. I'm so proud of myself. Clever. It's done by Kyoto Animation. It was published in April 2018. But yes, it does take place in the same school, same setting as sound euphonium, although the two main characters in this are primarily side characters in sound euphonium. They really aren't relevant, and vice versa as well, where the main characters in sound euphonium are really only shown in little cameos or little side scenes. The main story follows two girls, Nozomi and Mizore, a flutist and oboist, respectively, and their relationship and how it pairs up with the fairy tale Liz and the Bluebird. So yeah, let's try and avoid spoilers here. Let's do our first impressions of the show, or the movie rather. It's a 90-minute movie, so I don't know, just your general vibes after the first, more than 7 minutes, because there's nothing for 7 minutes. But yeah, what have you got, Miles?
Yeah, so I've been nominating this for a while. Honestly, I don't even remember why at this point, but I think I saw it on Amazon one day and was like, I should watch this. And then someone was like, it's in the sound euphonium verse. And then I was like, fine, I'll nominate sound euphonium. And it turned out that was completely unnecessary. But regardless, I really enjoyed it. I liked the switch up of the animation styles, how they have the two pretty distinct styles. I thought that was interesting. I liked our characters enough. And it was really pretty to look at because it was Kyoto Annie. So I think this is if you've seen sound euphonium, this is just sort of a more melodramatic sound euphonium, I think. And so if that sounds up your alley, go watch it.
So it's like another arc with new characters, you know?
Yeah, it's it was what were these characters in the background doing while these other things were happening? And then we find out, and it's pretty interesting. So
yeah, exactly. All right, Kat, what about you?
I really enjoyed Liz and the Bluebird. It's the first impressions that I could say without spoilers is just that it's just the characterization of the characters. I really enjoyed them, and The music, it's sound euphonium, so it's pretty much the same, honestly. I really did like the emphasis of the music where they were actually emphasizing the oboe and the flute throughout the show. It kind of showed that they were trying to continually keep those two in the forefront, even during sounds. So I really enjoyed that.
The
I
music
would definitely
was
I would
awesome. Yeah,
recommend it. By the way.
you would recommend it. Perfect. Yeah, I agree on the music. It's just like it's one of the main reasons why you would want to watch a show like this. They do a very good job. Has, what about you?
Yeah. So, on a different note, I did not like this movie at the first. I was ready to turn it off. I don't disagree with the fact that it's beautiful. It's in the sound euphonium verse. However, just initially, I was a little confused, um, because just obviously no spoilers. It starts not in quote unquote real life or whatever, and I was a little confused as to what was going on. And then when I kind of got it, I just felt a little bored in the beginning. But you know, later on it picks up. I listened to the chat. I let it cook. I let it cook. I let him turn on the stove. So after letting the stove be on, for it took a while for the stove to turn on for me, but I would recommend it.
I think that's really fair. Yeah, it is very. It's a slow burn. It's a simmer. Yeah, to keep with the theme. Wow. Jay, what about you?
Liked the first part of this movie. I thought that the storybook part was beautifully animated. I really loved like all the parts where we got to see that kind of like idyllic style of animation. I was watching it with my partner, and she kept saying like, "This is the luckiest girl in the world." Like she just gets to go live with animals and then find a random person and just have a house for free and go be friends with the baker whose mouth doesn't move while he's talking for some reason. And that I like the movie a lot. Like you guys said, music was perfect. It captured, I think, like obviously I can't give a huge opinion on this, but from the person that I watched it with, it captures the female gaze pretty well and that sort of thing. Just even in the beginning with how things are going, like it really captures like those odd feelings of adolescent not knowing what your relationship with somebody is, even from the very start. I feel.
Fair enough. All right. And Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, when I first watched this, I kind of forgot that this was supposed to be like in the same universe as Sound Euphonium. I was like, hey, this looks familiar. Wait a second. Those are the same
Mhm.
characters. Wait a second. So yeah, but yeah, not much happens in the first 20 or 30 minutes, honestly, as we've already established. But again, it's like, yeah, it's a pretty show, but I think for me, it just I don't know, it didn't feel like I could really like connect with the characters because even though like I myself play a musical instrument, I play a piano, which is like really just like more of like an individual kind of instrument, not something that you play with other people. So I don't really understand the whole like band dynamic thing too much. And some of the I'll be honest, like there's a lot of times in this movie that I just felt really bored. But in the last few moments of the movie, it did have some good moments. Like I wouldn't say this is a bad show. It's just I think it's one that not everybody would really appreciate. So I think that like personally for me, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't be watching it. But I can say it is like objectively with the music, it's Kyoto animation, so of course it's gonna look beautiful. It's definitely a very good visually good show, but I wouldn't say that I would recommend it for everyone.
I think that makes sense. That's a pretty fair review. And Pete, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little different because I was fully entranced in this world from the get go. I love how they started it off with the folktale and then incorporating it into sort of the main storyline. I thought that they did a really good job in the beginning of starting to build up this different world from Sound Euphonium, especially if you've seen season one, where I think that one's a little bit more uh what's a great word to use? Ganky, more like out there. The girls are way more have way more personality flowing through them. Where in this one, I think that you needed the time to let the characters build, and I gravitated to them right away. I think I'm by far the biggest Sound Euphonium stan in this group. It's like my number 41 anime of all time. I love it. I love the messaging and themes that they do. And if you're a fan of Sound Euphonium, you're going to love this movie too. So I would definitely recommend. I know it's like you don't have to watch Sound Euphonium first, but I would definitely recommend watching Sound Euphonium first and then watching the movie. But yeah, I would recommend this movie if you're into like character drama, coming of age, that type of thing of like future ongoings and endeavors and stuff like that. So yeah, big recommendation for me.
Yep. And for me, I think I'm a little closer to Johnny's side where if I wasn't watching this as part of the club, I probably wouldn't recommend it to someone like me. But I do think that this movie is technically great. I just, and we'll talk about this later, but I get frustrated by the decisions that they make in terms of I guess direction and the overall resolution of the story. And again, we'll talk about that more later. But other than that, it's a beautiful film. Really, really, I think they nailed the two of them playing together. I've struggled through that before, where rather than the flute and the oboe, it was me, the bass line or the bass clarinet, trying to keep the tubas and trombones in check and keep the orchestra moving together, or the wind ensemble moving together. So I should say, and that they did a really good job of nailing and then I also thought the teachers and the adults in the show did a good job of also being really good guides. Really, I don't know. It resonated really well with me there because it was similar to the teachers that I had, and how they tried to approach helping these two students try and figure out what was going wrong with the part that they were trying to do. So again, I can't say I would recommend it to everyone, but like Pete said, if you like Sound Euphonium, I definitely think that this is just more of the same sort of story and more of the same content that you would like, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, so why let's get into our spoiler section. So spoilers going forward. Pete, I think you wanted to start us off.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about something we briefly talked about like in our pre-recording, and it's a show that I think most of us watched here that I'm gonna compare it to was Review Starlight, where Listen to Bluebird is essentially interweaving the story of Listen to Bluebird into the story, or something like Review Starlight interweaved the actual Review Starlight into the story. So I know we had some conflicting opinions on this, so I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how you liked or didn't like the essentially the telling of Liz and the Bluebird and then the retelling of them in real life.
So I really enjoyed it. I liked it because I thought that like I know some people will probably not like it because of this, but it was a nice little thing. It was like, and this is what our heroines will be dealing with after this fairy tale segment. It hit us with like a a quick little synopsis of what we were about to see or what we had just saw towards the end. They sort of flip flopped the orders in which we got fed the information. But I just sort of liked Kyoto Annie Does Disney. It could be completely like superfluous and I'd still be a fan of it just because it was like really pretty. But I do sort of like the tie-in between the story, the musical piece that they're doing, and like their lives. So just like how all three of those tie together, I think it's like really interesting. So I really liked that. I thought it was a cool way to tell a story. Even if it sort of is telling the same story three times, I think that perspective shift you get from it, you get people who don't realize they're in the story, people who are doing an activity in which they need to like act out the moral of the story, and like the musical piece where they need to like work together, and like one of them needs to let the other one or let herself shine and like do what she needs to do and like accept their differences and everything, and then the story itself. So like I just liked that. Jay, what were your thoughts?
Enjoyed it a lot as well. I liked the kind of parallel sort of deal that they did with it. I enjoyed that it kind of like it set your expectations in a way, and whether or not whether or not the story past that point goes on to subvert or just, go along with your expectations is a little bit up for debate, but I think most of us can agree that it went pretty in line with how the story went overall, with a few exceptions. Like I said earlier, I liked the cutting back and forth because the animation and art style for the story sections was beautiful. So as was just the movie in general, gorgeous, gorgeous movie. And yeah, like I think as someone who enjoyed Review Starlight a lot, like I think I was actually the highest on it out of all of us, I'm pretty sure. That really kind of helped me get more into it because like you guys said, this movie is a slow burn. I would not blame anybody for tapping out after 30 minutes in this movie if they're not interested, just because like it is a really slow first like act, I guess you could say. And the storybook sections really help kind of break that up, in my opinion. So that's another reason why I think the storybook sections are good for the movie.
Yeah, I was slightly more negative on them, and to be fair, it's not necessarily their fault because I agree that they're beautiful and they're very well done, and they do a great job of showing the story of Liz and the Bluebirds, and they definitely do break up the beginning. But I also think that the the beginning of the movie didn't need to be broken up because to me, I think the movie it felt. I was saying this to Miles. It felt a little insecure in that I think there are a ton of moments towards the beginning where there's a lot less dialogue in the movie. That the visual storytelling, you kind of get the motivations of the characters from the way they act, like you could see it on their faces and in their emotions and in the way other people interact. And I felt like it was so intriguing that it it didn't really need to be broken up because as long as they kept that in a natural progression, it would have been fine. But my main issue is that at the beginning of the movie, and to be fair, also misremembered because I believe they told us the end of the story explicitly, and they did not, which Jay told me. I guess, but you could kind of put two and two together with how it ends based on the dialogue, and I guess I did, and I felt that they were a little redundant in explaining the story. And a lot of the meat of what I enjoyed was the commentary between the people about this story and what they would do in those situations, and I wanted more of that. So again, not necessarily an issue with the storybook parts themselves, more so a consequence of that summary at the beginning.
So for me, so I had only one issue that was similar to Haz's, but I thought that they broke up the story. That I agree with, but I don't think that they shouldn't have been in there. I feel like they should have been. I wish there were more like smooth transitions into them instead of like almost kind of completely like cutting in. Uh, I don't know how I would do it, but just kind of almost having like the regular like the story with the characters in Sound Euphonium saying the exact same thing as like maybe somebody in Listen to Bluebird, that kind of transition. That's how I would do it. I feel like that would have been more a better transition, and I feel like it would have kept the story going, kept it intriguing because in more of a musical term, it felt like it was switching rhythms when it hit those different notes. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree with you, and I think one way they could have done it, like what you said, was I'm glad you said it before I could, but the having them say similar things, and maybe having the scenes run parallel to each other, like and almost blend together like a painting. I think that that's one way they could have tied the scenes together better. Because I agree with Has and Cat here, where I think that I like them too. I just wish they didn't offer as much of a summary at the beginning. I wish they kind of let us piece it together ourselves. Like just because it felt like that first opening act lasted a very long time, right? Like it was what was it, like 7 minutes or so of them just walking along together. Like I don't know. It felt like they definitely could have tied them together a little bit better, and one of those ways would have been with having those characters echoing each other at one moment, like and just I don't know, maybe that would have been slapping us a little bit too hard in the face with like the symbolism, but I don't know. Then what's the point of it if you're not going to too, right?
Is this like
Other-
another Summer Ghost thing where Summer Ghost should have been 30 minutes longer, where this should have been like 30 minutes shorter?
Uh,
um, hmm.
I don't
I,
think so.
Would this
I-
have been better as as an anime series, like a mini series or OVA series, in your
I-
opinion, guys?
I think it. I personally, I think it would have been better as as almost like uh, half like a half series. So like where it's 12 minutes long instead of 24 minutes long. Where like every other episode they're doing like the sound euphonium and then the story and then the sound euphonium and then the story, just to kind of like it wouldn't, it might not make it as much sense while it's airing, but after that, like pairing those different shows together, I think it would have been really nice, personally.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, like 6 minutes of this, 6 minutes of that, or 12 and 12, where yeah, and then it allowed it to like kind of like tell itself at the same time. I think that's one way it could have worked. I think the movie could have been longer, but that's for a different reason. I think which we'll get to later. Like either longer or shorter, like you said. Like I think that if it were to be shorter, it wouldn't lose as much if these sorts of scenes were condensed down a bit too. Like, but I don't know if that would have really changed my enjoyment of it as much as some other things. I don't know how the others feel.
I don't even think it needs to be that much shorter. I truly think it's for me. It really comes down to that summary they gave, and it's a tough thing too because, as far as I know, the Liz and a Bluebird isn't actually a fairy tale, right? So, but it's supposed to be a children's story and therefore very simple to grasp, and that makes sense for the movie and spacing and timing. So, of course, you could summarize it essentially in a few sentences, which they do, and I think that just because I'm an adult, we're all adults, and we can piece things together. Um, it hurt
Speak for
that
yourself, okay?
I'm. Forgive me, forgive me. I forget. We got young souls in here. Uh, the uh, the fact that like as an adult you can piece it together. I personally felt that like it almost was like, okay, just so you know what happened in the story, just to make real sure, we're gonna show you it in Disney form. And not that that's not cool, but just it's one of those things where like knowing what's gonna happen already is like it kind of bored me a little. And again, I just think that the moments that it's not in that are so good because the messaging is so good and it's done so well, and the physical storytelling with the way people interact with each other, the 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 counselor is really where I felt the story started to pick up when Mizore talks to the counselor and they discuss the book, and I think stuff like that should have been more in the focus rather than the storybook personally, because that really goes to further the message a lot more than the storybook sections did, in my opinion.
See, I think it's more along the lines of like I do agree that like the storybook style of storytelling into them actually like acting it out was the same message, but I think like how they did it was different, and that's like really what I liked about it. Like the letting go part of the Liz and Bluebird folktale, like she literally lets her like leave the out of the house, but in when they go to like their performance, it's them letting go through music and really like letting the chains off of each other to let themselves like be free type of thing. And I really liked how they just interpreted the message through music. And to me that was just like fantastic storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. The use of the, like, as someone who was in concert band, and I'm sure Pat can relate to this too, like hearing the backing, like what I assume is the music they're playing in the background of the story, and certain other like regular story beats and such. It really helped me personally to be able to feel what themes they were going for when you can hear and like there was one scene, I can't remember exactly what the scene was, but they had like the part of the oboe solo in the third act going, and it's like, okay, there wasn't like they didn't have any flute going along with it like they had in the practice scene, really, besides for like accents on it. And I was like, okay, I understand what they're going for here. Like I can tell just based off of this piece of music what they're going for. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Like I think that they used music as storytelling very well. Like they could have done a little bit better with the visual storytelling aspect of the story, in my opinion, in some ways. But for the sound design, like I have no complaints about any of the sound design in this.
Well, that's so the music stuff is like really interesting, Jay. And I didn't even like. I mean, I got what they were trying to do with the stuff because at some points they literally just like tell us what they're doing, like with the music, right?
Mhm.
But that's like really, I love that storytelling, and I don't know why. I guess I wasn't, or I think like when music doesn't have lyrics, I like have a harder time picking up on like leitmotifs and like things like that. Um, but that's like a really, I love that sort of thing, and like I'd like to sort of like speed through this, but like listen to the parts where they're playing because I guess like to show how white I am, I really like Hamilton, and they do
You
this
sh-
thing where
In
him
February?
and in February, him and Eliza, when they sing each other's like harmonies, they're always offbeat until like the end when they're like together, and then they like come together, and like just like musical storytelling like that that isn't super, you have to like really listen to music to understand is like really cool. So thanks for pointing that out. I thought that was
you should
awesome.
you should listen to the I believe they mention it in the movie actually. Peter and the Wolf is a
Yeah, I
very famous
yes.
symphony
hmm
where all the characters are represented by a different instrument.
I really like the fox, or I guess it's the wolf. I was thinking of it earlier today because that was like the only thing like this I could think of where like it's like a purely like instrumental storytelling.
Yeah,
But
there's a few of those honestly. Yeah,
oh,
but
I'm sure there's tons of them. I'm just, like I have like babies first, like in music class,
yeah.
you listen sort of view of that. So
Yeah, no. So the just to bounce off even more of what you guys are saying, especially Jay, like I I was blown away by the way that the conductor, I guess, is the best way to put him in this case, their music teacher, the way he tried to describe to them how to try to play together and not just play in sync or play with the music that's on the sheet, but feel the story that you're trying to tell, right? Or that you're trying to support, right? Because they're playing this concert, I believe, at least alongside a play that's actually happening, right? Like that's what the plan is. So you're not the only person that matters in that, or you and the other bandmate that you're playing with aren't the only ones that matter. The story that's being presented on the stage matters, and you help enhance it. And you can't just play what's on the music sheet. You have to listen to what your partner is doing or what the person is doing, and play faster because they're going quicker, or answer back to their bravado with some other sort of answer, like depending on what is what the story follows, or and I think that the music teacher did a really good job explaining that and making it very poetic. That to me was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I think really was when and the counselor then talks them through it afterwards as well. I believe that the counselor immediately talks to Nozomi about it. Who's trying to who's struggling, right? Because she's not even sure if she wants to do this, right? She's not even sure if she wants to play the flute long term or ever again after high school. And that's something that someone who's really skilled and someone who's taking it a whole step further would have to do all the time, rather than just necessarily learning it for this one time, I guess, if that makes sense.
So for me, I think like with the sound design, I think that one of the things I really enjoyed about it was throughout the show, and I've actually mentioned this in our Sound Euphonium episode. If you want to go watch that, the thing about this show is it has the same quality where like throughout the show it's playing the same melody over and over again, and it's evolving every time it plays. So as I think Jay mentioned that there were some moments where the oboe was the only solo that was playing, or the flute was the only one that was playing. There were moments in the show uh, where they were like disjointed, and it kind of makes sense because at the beginning of the movie, it does say disjoint at the beginning, just kind of like a, I guess, blatant symbolism, but it like when it clues you in, and this helped especially actually in that same moment where that Pat mentioned, where the conductor was kind of like start trying to reply instead of just playing on the sheet, where it started to feel more fluid instead of mechanical, and I really enjoyed that.
Another point I wanted to bring up is that, Nozomi, she was so worried about what she needed to be doing with her life. Girl, go into aquarium work. Your water quality was insane. It was so clear. She had 3 pea puffers in one little 10-gallon, which is fine. No plants in there, but the water quality was so clear. They make so much waste. And also, pea they talk about them being poisonous and stuff. Pea puffers are not poisonous. They'll bite the shit out of you, but they're not poisonous.
How many points did this drop the movie for you?
Oh, it actually gained points because they modeled
Okay.
the fish very well. So I will give them that. That was beautiful. Best. Anyway, I just need an aquarium anime. I'm just ranting a little bit, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You should nominate.
Yeah.
You should nominate the Aquatope and the White Sand.
Plotless Aquatope. No,
Yeah, in the for our 2 core. Yeah,
I'm
that
okay.
we're nominating. Yeah. I don't blame you for being okay.
For somebody who watched it, please don't knob it.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to talk about that Sound Euphonium did as a series that I think also did it in this movie was like kind of like the touches that they do for female characters. So an example in season 1, in the first scene, we see like the girls hiking up their skirts to like kind of like impress the boys, and then the teacher's like immediately calling them out, and like that's like a real thing that girls do. And I really like that in this movie that they did like when like they were nervous, they'd like play with their hair, and they did a really interesting scene that I don't think I've ever seen it been done before in like a movie or a show, where they're showing Misery's character, and she was like distraught, and then they switched to her point of view of her looking down at her feet and playing with her hair. And it's like little touches like that were just like such a cool like little dash that really sets Kyo Annie apart. So I want to know if there's anything from like the movie that you saw, like these little tidbits that really stuck out to you.
Weird amount of leg shots.
feet too. I was when we were having our Yuri Bait debate, I was just looking up what other people's opinions were, and so I saw this blog written by this lesbian woman, and she was like talking about it, and she was like, I've never seen a movie with this many feet in it, and I was like, someone doesn't like Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, anyways, back to the things we liked about this. I wanted to interject real quick though.
I wasn't saying I liked the weird amount of leg shots, by the way. It was just something I noticed. I just wanted to clarify that
the thing
on record.
Jay really liked was the weird amount of leg shots. I think. Oh, go ahead, Ez.
No, you go ahead.
I think that Kyo Annie does, and this might be like a little male gazy, but they do good like transition frames where if they're like showing movement and they're going somewhere else, they'll show like a skirt flick or something, and it's like pretty dynamic. And I sort of like how they do that. Generally, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, one of the things I liked, and it kind of helped me sort of put this in the context of Sound Euphonium, was the scene where we get the scene from Sound Euphonium 1 from their perspective. I thought that was really nice, and it also helped with the timeline because I wasn't particularly sure when this was going on until that happened. And, you get to see it's the scene from Sound Euphonium 1 where they're practicing behind the school building, and it's the 3 girls looking out through the window, and then they fall back. And I thought it was a real nice touch because it helps the school feel real, and it helps things feel like it's very much alive, and not one thing is happening at the same time. You know what I mean? Like multiple people have issues at the same time. Like completely removed, but it was going on. You know what I mean? And I thought that was a nice touch.
There was another scene that from season 1 where it's Kumiko and Reina, and they're on top of like a hill overlooking the city, and it's sort of like their defining moment of them coming together as like really good friends. I think it kind of clicks in that moment. and you get like this panning shot of them like on a bench and talking about it. And then in this scene, or in this movie, we have sort of the same thing where Misere is on a hill overlooking the school, but she's by herself on the bench this time. And I thought that was kind of like a really cool nod to like the differences between the characters, where it's it's Kumiko and Reina becoming closer friends. And then in this movie was Misere sort of, I guess in the context of that scene, maybe losing her friend. And I thought that was just like a really nice contrast between the two, and just like a little nod that they did. I was a huge fan of that.
So, were the random people playing the trumpet and the whatever, the euphonium, or is that the characters from the series?
They're the
that I
main
didn't watch?
characters.
I thought
Yeah.
so. Okay.
Bow Girl is also kind of important.
Who?
The girl with the yellow bow, she shows up.
Yep.
Oh,
The two
Yeah.
people talking about
very
ice cream.
memorable.
Yeah.
Very memorable.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that character, Bow Girl.
I'm sure you are.
It's Preston's already DMing me about how I don't like the show because I couldn't remember her name, Yuko. So
Oh, yeah, I also wanted to one more thing too. This wasn't like just the scene, but in that scene too, I really did like the framing of it was Nozomi in that scene looking over, because you hear there's a girl who's angry with the way that things are being handled, and the way Nozomi is handling, their separation, but it never switches to them because it's so focused on Nozomi and how she's handling it, and like her awkward reaction to, someone's yelling at her and essentially saying, You're fucking up, you know what I mean? You're doing this wrong." And then, but it's so focused on Nozomi, and I love that it never really deviates from that, because it makes it feel more personal, and instead of this expanding the cast and deviating your attention like, oh, who is this random person that only shows up for this one scene, you know what I mean?
I think that scene is insanely powerful, because you see in like the previous scenes that Misere and Nozomi are having issues with their like duet thing that they're doing, and everybody is well aware of it. And then they hear Kumiko and Reina doing their version of it, everyone is entranced. And so it was just like Nozomi like clicking like, oh, like we kind of suck. Like this is what it's supposed to sound like. Like these two have like the chemistry to be this duo partner. Like we don't have that. And I thought that scene was so important to the story of kind of maybe like something clicking in Nozomi's head, because that's where it kind of, that's one of like I think like two scenes where she's questioning going to music college. She's questioning the duet, and like second guessing herself coming back to concert band. And to me is just like so, it's such like a small thing, but it has such a huge impact, and that's one of many reasons why I love this movie. Okay, so one of the big things about this movie that I loved and resonated with was the human connection between these two, and forging like a possible future as like friends, or just like someone that they deeply care about, and kind of like really basing your decision on your future at such a vulnerable age, I thought was really compelling, because you see Nozomi question her decisions so many times. Like, am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for Misere? What do I actually want out of this? And like, it's just like, it was like a really interesting coming of age decision that I feel like we don't see a lot in anime. I think a lot of the times when we get to like the graduation stage of shows, the show ends. We don't really see what's the after story or something along those lines. Where in this, I feel like we got like a clear cut answer on what they were going to do, but it was more along the lines of the troubles and the situations that they put themselves in to get to that point. So how did you guys feel about maybe like the themes, the messaging between, whether it was these two or just like the idea of like forging a future possibly together?
yeah, so I mean I when I was in my senior year of high school, I went to college across the country because my parents had moved out there. And it's like really hard to move away from your friends, even if you're like going to go do something new and exciting in like college, right? So like the way that I handled it was to find couches to surf on for like 2 months. Um, and just sort of like prolong that time like that way. But at the end of the day, like I knew like in the back of my head that I like had to go and like do my own thing in like this new area and stuff, even if it like sucked. But that is sort of how I felt like with this. They were like trying to find ways to put together like how to keep being friends and stay together and all of that. And it was just hard.
I really liked how they handled it because, obviously, all of my friends went to college and I'm not in college right now. And so I had to deal with a similar situation. I don't think it ever got to, nearly the levels of you know, drama, and like I didn't feel nearly as pressured. I will say it is a little confusing because there are phones, but I guess it's still bridges. There's still distance, but I understand that struggle because they did a really good job of, you know, when you're going to that point of like I'm about to make a life decision and I'm like 17, 18. That's hard, and it's good to show that, not everyone's certain. And because no one ever is, that's a big decision. That's a 4-year commitment. And you might not even like what you do. You might change as a person. You're still growing. And they really showed well with Nazumi, like, I've questioned this before because she did leave before. Um, like maybe I'll question it in the future, even though I'm enjoying it now, and like maybe like that uncertainty was really well done and set up with her past. It all kind of felt not like just some sporadic like, oh, but I want to be like a baker or like a musician. Like it felt very much real.
While I couldn't relate to the, going to school for friends, I did end up deciding, oh, I wanted to go to school up in Boston because I knew a couple of my friends would go to colleges up there, and staying in touch with them that way. So it does, in this case, sticking with music was her Boston, right? Was her like decision to go, okay, I'm going to stick with music so that I can stay with my close friend. And I can definitely understand like at least the thought process there, but that's when it's nice that she had counselors and other people to step in and talk to her about it and talk her out of making a decision that she wasn't really comfortable with. Which, I don't know, when I left for college, I was an education major, and now I don't do that at all. Like, I thought I was going to be a teacher, and it took only a year and a half of college for me to figure out that that is not where I need to be right now in life. And and I think that I'm glad I was able to make that change. But if I had chosen to go to like a music school, let's say, it's a lot harder to leave a music school and then go do something else than it is, going to a normal school and then specializing in a specific thing and then deciding you want to change. So I think I think they approach that it's so hard. Like it's really, really hard to make that decision when you're 16, 17 years old or 18 years old. And I think that they touched on that really, really, really nicely. So yeah, I do we want to move on to I have a main nitpick that I shouldn't say nitpick. I think that is a serious flaw in the story. Um, I think this is our hotly contested topic. We talked about
Oh
this in the
no.
pre-show and
my
all day
God.
and most of the day today, to the point where I organized my thoughts because I wanted to come across and make sure that what I am saying exactly is clear and my opinion is clear. So my main frustration with the show and why I've docked it quite a few points, I think, is that the show felt like to me like it was Yuri Beatty and very uh non-committal with the decisions that it made regarding the story. So I think there are two options that they could have gone for with the show to have made it actually have a message or actually have a an end goal with the story. So if the show wanted them, the two main girls, to be platonic friends, which is the way I interpret it, because at the end of the day, they don't show everything or show anything that would suggest otherwise yet. Then I think that they wouldn't have had all of the long stares, the intense confession at the end, where I think has said it, where she's complimenting the way she walks or her footsteps or something like Like I don't even remember specifically, but they, a confession that sounds romantic and I don't know how other way to put it. And they wouldn't have left us with such a confusing moment at the end of the movie as well, where something happens and she turns around and Mizore, pardon me, just looks completely shocked. The other way that they could have gone, if they wanted to show or wanted the two main characters to be gay, or one of them to have been gay, they would have explored that more deeply, I think, by the end of the movie. And especially with the final scene, they would have made them experience the conflict, and then force them to resolve said conflict of whether that is one of them being gay and the other not, and and their romantic interest in each other, whether they were reciprocated or not, and then following that, them moving on to becoming friends only, or never speaking again, or moving on in their lives to the next stages of their lives, like what happens in the fairy tale of Liz and the Bluebird. Where at the end of the day, they do have to let you love something and you let it go, you move on. And because neither happens, and then the way the show plays it right down the middle to me, from my perspective at least, it plays it right down the middle. It offers no closure other than a tease that they might have kissed or done something similar. It comes off so extremely baity to me, and it does not actually commit to either of the potential stories that I pitched here or throughout. And then thus the story of the fairy tale, where there is closure, where there is an ending, and that's why I feel like it's incomplete. Where I think, like we talked about earlier, 30 more minutes, even 20, would have been enough to, I think, close out their relationship. Whether that was them being platonic friends, and then we would have gotten closure knowing that, or more time for them to actually be to come to the conflict of either one of them being gay or them both being gay and having to either accept each other's love or accept that they can't work together because one of them has to go do music school here and the other's going somewhere else. Like they're just that is where my frustration lies with the story, because it doesn't the story of the Liz and the Bluebird does not align with what happens to the characters in my opinion.
Okay.
Go ahead,
So-
Miles. Sorry.
Oh,
I
sorry, can someone-
haven't
someone might have-
read.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't read
Um,
it because I was talking
Cat.
and trying to focus.
Yeah.
Cat, go.
Okay, so my response to what you've said is that I think the story is complete. Personally, I think the climax of the story, where it really shows what the decision of the ending of the story is at the end during the "I love you" hug, where what's her name is giving her a hug, and the reason why I say it's complete is because one of the things that they've done, because they've done this very subtly throughout, where they're doing different things that mean a lot. They're doing like small things that mean a lot, that are kind of hinting at they're nervous or they're uncomfortable, things like that. What happens is I can't remember her name, Ponytail Girl. She starts laughing during this hug, and the other girl is not like phased at all. And you can kind of see like her being even more stiff, which almost to me feels like she's realizing that, like, one, Ponytail Girl doesn't realize that she was being serious with this, and the other girl is realizing that she isn't like that. So it's basically saying, we can be friends, but we can't be together, and I need to let you go. And that's just kind of how I viewed it, where one is kind of blossoming and flying away into music college, and the other one is sticking towards books and going to a more traditional college.
Yeah, I'm also in the book that it's not Yuri baiting. I think for the most part that the scenes that they set up when they are together have like no romantic like context, minus the last scene where I think it's pretty much confirmed that Mizure is gay and Nozomi is not. I thought that was like pretty clear as day, like the confession scene and what it meant. Yeah, I thought that just the scenes that themselves where they put themselves with them just as each other had different messaging of riding along together, being this friendship, like actually caring for somebody more than just as a friend, but like generally caring about them, and one of them possibly leaning more towards romantic, but figuring that out. And I think that's kind of like the whole thing of where like if you took Yuri on Ice minus the kiss scene, I think those scenes are way more romantically implied. That's more like yaoi baiting. To this, I didn't really sense a theme of romance until literally the last confession scene.
Okay, well, Yuri on Ice isn't Yaoi on Ice. Um, isn't Yaoi Bait because like they get together.
Minus if you took out the kissing scene, it's like very heavily yaoi baiting. But because that it's confirmed that they become a couple and stuff, like it's just like a legit yaoi is kind of what I mean.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think for me personally, because, and this is obviously, I don't think, I think I may be one of the only people that feel this way. I had a Fate Apocrypha situation in which I mean, I swear it's going to make sense.
Oh no, I know.
The
Oh,
the first character introduced felt like the main character, and the first character in my head, in my memory is a little shot. I am tired. Was Mizure. So I felt that although obviously Nazumi has this big stuff about her struggle with what she wants to do, I think because of the confession scene and just other things throughout the story, it recontextualizes the journey of what I felt was the main character, which is Mizure, to something about her expressing herself and this limited time. And of course, of course Nazumi has her stuff about like where she wants to go, but it can also recontextualize that in that maybe she doesn't realize she has feelings. And I feel like because of that confession scene and the very ending scene, it's hard for me to look at this and I felt like a lot of the drama, like I said, personally, I didn't have this level of drama when it came to separating from me and my friends. And I feel like a lot of that drama was enhanced by the fact that there was clear romantic subtext for Mizure at the very least. So is it Beatty? N- I can't say either way. I can say this for sure. It is not anything close to like the actual series and where it's a lot more physical and intimate. However, it does feel like a large part of the tension and drama comes from Misure's romantic feelings and how it affects her expression and her. It feels like a big motivator, but again, I think they tried to remove that from Nazumi at points, but in the context, knowing that Mizure loves her in that way, it can also, change how you view Nazumi stuff to more of a conflict of, not just what do I want to do, but do I want to be with you for the rest of, however many years it is during college.
Fair enough. All right. I guess we'll move on to our final thoughts. So why don't we start off with Miles like we usually do? Final thoughts and score.
Sure. I really enjoyed this. To weigh in quickly on like the Yuri baiting thing, I could see it either way. I don't really know. I looked up like on some lesbian forums what they thought, and it was pretty 50-50 split. I think we're 50-50 split. I don't know. I think sure or not. I don't know. I think it's a good story. I like it. I think I'd probably lean towards it's just melodramatic. Like Japan loves these like really deep, over the top friendship sort of things in their stories, and I think that's fine. I really enjoyed the visual storytelling and the audio storytelling and like how all of this was interweaved. I thought it was a fun thing. I don't think I liked it as much as I liked Hibiki. I think that it sort of lacked the fun of that series, and like while that's not necessarily the point of this, it doesn't need to be fun just because it's like tied to it. Um, I kind of would have liked that. I thought there was like a little bit of like fan service, not in like the sexy way, but in the like we just saw a random character sometimes because they were like, you guys know these characters, here they are, and that like honestly took me out of it a little bit. Um, where you would just like see someone cleaning a euphonium for like no reason, and then that was just so you would would be like, oh, there's Kumiko. So like that's like one of my like minor nitpicks of it, but overall I did like the story. I think I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. All right, Kat, what about you?
I also enjoyed this romp through the Hibiki Euphonium verse. It was on the whole debate of the end of it, I am firmly in this is a one-sided love story, where and it doesn't end badly where there's like, oh, I hate you or whatever. It feels like they're having to backtrack and learn how to be friends with somebody that they actually have feelings for, and I enjoyed that. And and since this is my point of view, I think that that's actually pretty well done, especially with how there's subtlety in the story and how the subtlety in the ending, in my opinion. And because of that, I actually think it raises some points for me. And my final score for this is probably going to be a 9 out of 10.
Damn, son, I love it.
9 out of 10. All right, Has, what about you?
Yeah, Pete has brought to my attention some damning evidence against this show. There is no Chupacabra, therefore it is a 0. No. But I do agree with Miles in the sentiment that I don't believe it's as good as Sound Euphonium. I think not just from I think a lack of fun, because I think that the drama and the dialogue is still very good for what it's trying to achieve. I think more so for me, although the music is obviously very well done here and very important to the story, it didn't. I guess I expected the Sound Euphonium levels of grandiose when those scenes came out, and to sort of let it do a lot more personally. Um, that's in my shattered, you know, sleep deprived memory though. So give that a brain of salt. Also, the beginning, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of, but it was still great. The visuals were great, the sound design was great, the music was great. I had no problem with the random characters coming around and made the school feel alive to me, and that everything was kind of going on, and I thought it was all very well done. So I'm gonna give it a solid 7.
7 out of 10. Alrighty. Jay, go ahead. Sorry, I almost read Gohan's B-Stacks, but no. Your name is Jay.
It's fair. It is a legendary weapon from the Dragon Ball series.
Apparently. It
Yes,
used to
it's
be.
iconic. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. I really don't have a ton of complaints. I can understand how some people would feel that it was a bit baity. Like, I do understand where people come from with that. That's people who want I understand wanting closure and for things to just be neatly defined in that sort of thing. But the issue with that is that's not how it works when you're growing up and figuring out like your feelings and where you stand in the world and stuff. You can't just put everything into a neatly defined box like, oh, we're friends, or oh, you know, what it like I'm complete like I you can't say I know I'm completely straight or whatever. Like some people can, but not everybody can say that back then. Like in high school, I thought I was completely straight. Turns out, not the case. I can like people come out later in life all the time. Not everybody is going to be like you know, someone wearing like a progress flag on their backpack with dyed hair, whatever the stereotype of a gay teenager you want to have. Like some people really need time to figure that sort of thing out and don't figure out until adulthood. And part of the thing that they mentioned is that, birds are migratory. They come back. I don't think that necessarily. Like, are we ever going to get anything more out of this? No, probably not. That's what fan fiction and shit is for. If you want to figure it out, go read a fan fiction. That's what you want. But I think that overall, I'm not docking points for them just not showing stuff because leaving it up to the reader or viewer, rather. Sorry, I've been reading a lot recently. It leaving that interpretation up, I think, is very respectful of the viewer in a way. But I also do understand why people would want to see it like clearly defined. I get the complaints against it. So I think based on the overall story, I like the conversation we were able to have around it. I loved the music. The animation was beautiful. And it had fish tanks. Did I mention that? Did I mention that there were fish tanks? They showed a pea puffer fish and white cloud minnows. White cloud minnows are insane, dude. Anyway, both of those are illegal in Maine, unfortunately, by the way. I cannot have them here. And so I'm giving this overall a 9 out of 10 as well.
9 out of 10. All right. Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, so very pretty show, obviously made by Kyo Animation. That's to be expected. Music it wasn't necessarily my kind of music. It's a bit weird. Like I'm not really a huge fan of like the orchestra kind of music usually. I'm not gonna lie. It's like when it's only wind instruments, I like it when there's like a bit of other stuff, like violins, drums, pianos, things like that. But I think when it's just like the flute, saxophones, and things like that, it's not really my style. But I still think like if you like that, it's still like I'm sure that like if you're into that, then it's great. But again, it's just some parts of the show just felt like it was just going on for too long. It just felt like nothing was really happening until like I would say like the last 1/3 of the movie, in my opinion. So I think that with all that, I think I'm gonna have to give it a 7. I don't think you can really say it deserves to be much lower because it's just like how pretty it looks and stuff like that. But I think with the fact that I can't really relate to the story that much, so I think I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10.
I think that's completely fair. Pete, what about you?
Love the themes, love the message. I kind of like Miles. I like the characters in Sound Euphonium more. However, in this style of context where it's just a movie, I thought the characters were very good. Just a unique premise of high school and what's next. Instead of just ending it there, we get like closure kind of on like what their futures are going to be and how they kind of figured it out through however ways that they did it. Yeah, man, just really love this movie. I don't think it's as good as Sound Euphonium, so because of that and the lack of Chupacabra, I'm gonna give this a 9. I thought it was a fantastic film.
All right. And yeah, I kind of already did a little bit of my last thoughts or already. I think production wise, it's hard to give this this movie any sort of shit. Like it's really nicely drawn and animated. The sound is great. The voice actors do a really good job, at least and in the dub as well. I think they did a really good job, which isn't always the case. Especially for shows that didn't come out in the past, like, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. It's not that old of a movie, but still, it's old enough that it wasn't really the prime of dubbed anime, I don't think. So yeah, I'm still frustrated with the lack of closure, and I definitely see what you're saying, Jay, where it is never closed fully. Like, you never know until in real life, at least, right? You never know how things are going to change for you. How the reason, especially for me, why I'm frustrated is because the show hints that there might be an answer, and then to me, at least, never really provided one for what is going on and how they actually feel about each other.
Yeah.
And I think in a fictional setting, especially one where you're trying to align it with the theme of a story, or have it be the exact opposite, or say like, oh, not all fairy tales come true, and like contrast or reflect the story. I think I wanted like some more clarity, like, which
That's fair. I think, like I said, I think it's the complaints that people have for the most part are entirely fair for feeling the way that, like you guys feel in the way that you do.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with it. I mean, I personally disagree with them. I don't disagree with you having them.
Yeah. Well, I disagree with you. So
Well,
there we go.
all right, shit on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. A Fortnite dance on or something like that.
Oh God.
Yeah, sorry. All right. Yeah, we're all tired clearly at the end of this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I think giving it anything lower wouldn't really be fair to the production, and again, the scenes are really powerful with them, especially like the confession scene is really nice. I was just frustrated that it didn't pull everything together for me at the end personally. So that average brings our average score. Wow, that's a very even number to an 8.0 overall. Good job, guys. Really good job. So yeah, we have an 8.0 for this movie, which compared to the Mal score is an 8.19. So just about under a 2 point or 0.2 difference. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. All right, Miles. We need to know what we're watching for our lovey-dovey romance episode on February 20th.
Yeah, so everything did good except for Bloom into you, you homophobes. And
I see.
yeah, but we had a pretty, I mean, we had like 9, 9, 9, 11, 11, 12 were our final scores here.
9, you say?
Yeah, exactly. You dig?
You dig?
Um, so I'm gonna the way I'll do this is like the 2 11s are gonna get legacy points, and then the 12 will win. Or I don't know if anyone really wants. I could just give everything besides Bloom and you a legacy point. I don't really.
I like your first option.
Okay, sure. Holy shit! I just realized I forgot the Twitter poll. 1 second. This is we're learning. I can't believe. Yeah, no.
Damn,
sorry,
we even had a conversation about how I'm not using straw poll anymore.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Oh no! I wonder if this is going to change the results. I think if anything, based on what won, this probably won't change the results very much. I don't.
It's a 1 point difference between first and second.
No, I agree with you, but the show, I don't think it'll make a difference.
Okay, it does not make a difference, but it gives us just 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So in third we have Josie the Tiger and the Fish.
Wow, it shot up. Damn.
Yeah. In second we have East of Eden. And then Johnny buddy, in first place, winning by 1 point. We have Relife. So
okay, this time it was second.
But if you hadn't voted for it, or had voted for it third, your show would have won.
So that's 3 times in a row now.
Let's all clap for Johnny for cucking himself on Romance Week.
No one fucks me except me.
NTR, baby, and
we're having a really, really good episode this week, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
So
we now need to discuss what our plan is for Relife, because the original series I believe is either 12 or 13 episodes, and then there is an OVA that really does wrap up the story. That's I believe 4 episodes longer. I am not opposed to watching it. I think, but I also understand why people might not want to. Maybe we could probably talk about this off air. Actually, I think that it would be probably better to do that so yeah, that is what we decided to do. Thank you, Pete, for interjecting and telling the listeners what we decided off air to air, and that's how many episodes of Relife we'll be watching. Now let's nominate our shows for the February. Never mind, the March 6th Watch Club. God damn, we'll be in March.
Are we doing a March Madness episode this year?
We will probably, but this is for our 2 core for nominations now. So normally our shows are only 1 core. However, we do it once a year. We nominate 2 core shows.
Holy shit! Let's do a March Madness practice with everything with legacy points. We fucking tier it by the amount of legacy points. We have the community vote. And then we watch one of them at the end. I'm so glad I came up with this idea.
That's really good. We should do that.
How's that going to be an episode?
That'll be the March 20th episode. There you go. That's perfect.
We'll see.
We'll see.
The normal March Madness episode is our most listened to episode ever on a non-YouTube thing. So
we don't need to do that whole thing as an episode. I just say we do that, and that's how we decide what we do for Watch Club. Anyways,
yeah. No, I agree with that. I get what you're saying. I like that. But yeah, so let's nominate our 2 core shows. Miles, what are you bringing to our 2 core spectacular?
So I really planned on doing Mushishi. Like, I really wanted to do that. And then this week, we just had a movie, and I had to watch the movie in like 3 parts because I really underestimated how much having a newborn would make me busy. And so I'm going to nominate... For a little peek behind the curtain, we were like really fighting about this movie before this, but we were all like respectable, which is like good. That's what we should be. But I want us to fucking fight. I want fighting. I want it. Okay. And I also want something with a dub that I've already seen. So I'm going Toradora.
Oh my god.
No.
Yeah, this will be good.
Guys, please
boy.
don't. All right.
Oh, yeah, wait, okay, Jay, did you just watch it? Is
I
that
literally
the issue?
just watched this for
Just so you know, that episode is going to be 5 hours long.
We literally had a long discussion about it in our Secret Santa. We don't need to relitigate it.
I missed it because I was feeding my child.
That's your fault.
We're going to need like a 7-parter on that one.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the drawing board to respect the J factor.
Thank you.
That's a good call. So
I appreciate it.
Kat, what's your show?
So I still haven't watched this show, and I if I don't win this time, I'm nominating next year. Fate Apocrypha.
I knew it.
Okay, that's
Fucking
that's a
cat.
choice.
Cat, why?
I
I,
want to see you suffer because those are the episodes that make me most happy.
one, this will only make me stronger. And two, Jay will understand this, but this will make me like channel the Phoenix.
What?
And
Yeah,
someone
you'll-
that wants only to consume.
yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep things moving here. Has, what about you? What is your 2 core nomination?
You know, the same way Pete opened up the show with the Blue Jays, I be like I said, I be balling. You feel me? Not baseballing, but I be balling. You feel me? And you know, I know Pete loves Log Horizon, so I'm here playing to the strengths. The same studio that made Log Horizon is
Oh,
doing
okay.
this one. This is Bass Squash. Now, what is more hype than sci-fi sports mecha basketball?
That does look
Baby,
really fun.
we are in there. It
What?
has the Nike cosign. That's all I gotta say.
Can you
Let's
tell me how to spell this?
BASQUASH.
Sasquatch with a B.
Yes, sir. And
That's
we
a
in
very
there.
clever name. That's really
Mhm.
clever. All right, I like it. We'll be in there.
It's rated higher than Fate Apocrypha, by the way, and has said all of those things. So think about how bad Fate Apocrypha might be before you vote for it.
So, I was shilling Vinland Saga for a while.
Yes,
And
and I
but then
didn't
everybody
watch it.
basically everybody decided to watch it besides for Miles because he doesn't watch anime.
I was gonna say, don't do this to me. Don't make me watch it again.
I'm not so I'm not nominating that. Instead, I will probably nominate the second season next year, is what I'm
Yes.
thinking. Instead, I also want to nominate something that I am comfy with, something I enjoy, something that's just high quality in general. I am going to nominate the smash hit best-selling manga for 2 years in a row. I'm nominating Jujutsu Kaisen's first season.
Oh,
Let's go,
that's a good
baby.
one.
Let's
That's
go.
a really good one. That would be a good way to get me to vote. I like that. Thought you were gonna say Gurren Lagann for a second there. Yeah, that'd be good too. But that works. Jay.
Whoa.
I didn't get to say Jay. Jay just
Fair
won,
enough.
to be fair. So my brain was still lagging. Johnny, with no H. What are you nominating, buddy?
Yeah, so this show might be some that you people might know is special for me. It's got time travel. It's got a guy trying to go back in time to save a girl. And it is not the show we're talking about. It is going to be
Steins Gate.
Steins Gate.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I was like,
Okay,
no one's
yeah.
voting for ReZero.
I think it'd
Johnny-
be fun to talk about, but yeah, I would
think
not watch it
everyone's
again.
Well,
I haven't seen
one person
ReZero.
hasn't, but
Johnny has fought more losing battles than trying to nominate ReZero here.
I've never tried to nominate ReZero.
Johnny got us to fucking do a Remo. So
You know,
No, he got
Miles,
you
don't
guys, not
remove
me.
yourself from the.
Do not
Listen,
be in the same people who voted for that show.
And for Remo.
people like to suffer, and I gave them what they wanted. I don't know
I
why you're all
got
mad.
I'm not afraid to admit it.
Yeah, I got pranked as well.
Feel
Pete,
issue.
what's your 2 core, Pete?
I had two in mind. One was Chihaya Faru, but I've realized that we're all dudes and no one's voting for a show with a strong female lead except for maybe Jay.
Yeah, thank you.
We just did Liz and the Bluebird.
Yeah,
Yo.
but
Strong,
th-
it
that-
said strong female lead.
strong female lead. So I'm
They
gonna go with
knew
the
they
show
were
that
strong enough to let go, Jay.
I'm gonna pick a show that I've been very critical on in the past, but I don't think I gave it a fair share. I think I was in like the wrong spot. So
March comes in.
I'm going to nominate March Comes In Like a Lion.
Fair enough. I was thinking about doing that. That was on my list as well because it's its second season is rated so highly. It can't possibly be bad if it's rated so highly on Mal, right? Like,
Certainly not.
there's no way. Surely
How
not.
did you already know what he was gonna say?
Because I've been
but I mean,
talking
not
about it for
bad.
like months.
I thought it was
Uh-oh.
coming too.
I listen to Pete when he talks.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've literally named 2 shows for the last like 3 months about what I'm going to
Right.
nominate.
Yeah, and if you guys listen to me, you'll know what I'm going to nominate. This is a show that when we did this for Watch Club, everyone said, "Man, this movie is fine, but it would be really good as a show, or the show
Oh,
probably did this better."
That's
Raise
good.
a
I'm
font?
I'm putting Razefon.
Oh my god!
I'm putting the
Oh
Razefon
my god.
the Razefon TV show.
It should have been Escaflowne.
I
Escaflowne is
thought
just
it was
Razefon,
I
Escaflowne.
thought
no
about
matter.
I
so
thought
much.
about Escaflowne. I enjoyed Rajefon more as a show, or between the two movies, I enjoyed Rajefon more. I think so. I chose Rajefon instead of Escaflowne, Escaflowne or whatever.
Whatever you want to say.
I don't know. I thought Rajefon was a lot. The ending of Rajefon was more interesting. In terms of like what you can do with it. So I'm very curious to see how this show would pan out over 26 episodes. I don't know. That was the reaction I was looking for, guys. So I got the rise out of you that I needed already. Miles, what are you nominating now that you've done some more research? Are you gonna do Escaflowne?
I'm gonna do I'm gonna do Link Quick, but we have to watch it twice.
Ooh. What's in
I-
Chinese and what's in Japanese?
I am going to do, just because I can't really think of anything, and like while I would love to do Mushishi, I literally wouldn't finish it. It's like very slow and only in Japanese, and it just wouldn't happen. And so out of self-preservation, I'm going to do season 1 of Higurashi When They Cry, just in case it happens to get there.
I would.
So
I
This is
promised
gonna be
you
a-
I would watch it once, so I didn't say when I was going to, but you probably have my first place vote.
Like the original?
It's
yeah,
gonna be.
like the
gonna be-
original.
gonna
Because
be
the
real
other one's
odd.
a sequel, it turns out. It was secretly not a remake, it was secretly a sequel, which led to people being very confused.
Myself
Pat.
included.
Yes.
Yeah.
Myself included, starting it and being like, "What's going on? I don't get it." And I wasn't supposed to, so that's
this is
okay.
not the proper way to consume this media, but I can't get Pete to read anything, so
Are we done here? Sorry. Edit
Oh,
this
yeah,
out, Pete,
we're done
'cause
if you
Holy
need
shit!
to,
I
Pete.
do not have any time.
Yeah,
Thank
go,
you.
go, go, go.
I literally have been holding. I've been turtling this entire time. I mentioned I had to take a
Turtling.
shit, and you guys just kept going.
All right.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the shit thing,
Jesus.
sorry. Okay.
But yeah, so that wraps up our Watch Club. Pete, close us out.
If you have made this far and you want to support us, the best way to do so, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on whatever platform you are watching and or listening to us on. Next week, it's my favorite episode of the year, Anime of the Year. We will be counting down everybody's votes and choosing what won, so that's going to be really fun. Otherwise, if you're here for Watch Club, in 2 weeks, we will be watching a show I already forgot what Real Life. We'll be watching Real Life, so we will see you then. Thanks, everyone.